It's time to take your seat in the front row with Mike Vaccaro. Here's your host, Mike Vaccaro.
Thank you, Chuck, and welcome everybody. Mike Vaccaro here in the front row. As always, behind the scenes, it's our creator, producer, and director, J.R. Quitman. We're up to episode number 25. Before we get to that, we want to thank all of those who have watched and listened to the first 24. Great guests, great stories. We hope you're enjoying it as much as we are. So now for episode number 25, it is a Super Bowl MVP, a trailblazer as well, Doug Williams. He won a Super Bowl back in 1987 with the Washington Redskins, the first black quarterback to play in the NFL Super Bowl and to also be the MVP as well. That's only part of his story, a great story that starts in Louisiana, growing up, playing a lot of different sports, eventually playing for a Hall of Fame coach at Grambling State as well. A lot to get to, a lot to cover. He covers it all, and a lot of family talk as well. Episode number 25, it features Super Bowl MVP Doug Williams. Doug, first of all, it's a pleasure to have you on as our guest, and certainly looking forward to this one. But I thank you for taking some time out of your schedule, a busy schedule, as you're always doing something there. And again, joining us here today, it's a pleasure to have you join us.
No, it's my pleasure. And they're always trying to find something for me to do. Since I'm sitting around here, they try to make, if I have to clean the bathroom or what have you, they try to find something for me to do. So that's the way it is.
Well, you're a great ambassador for the organization there. We're going to talk about that and so much of your life, and you really get into it here. And let's start at the very beginning for you. You're born in Zachary, Louisiana back in 1955. What was life like growing up at that time, and sports? How much were you involved in sports at that time as well?
Well, you know, my whole family basically was athletic. You know, my dad played semi-pro baseball. My mom played softball. And growing up, you know, he was always around a ball. My oldest brother played baseball, was fortunate enough to go to Cleveland Indians back in 1964. If you know, back in 1964, if you had an arm injury, you know, you done. And he hurt his shoulder. And, you know, I was a little boy playing Little League baseball. When I was like 7 years old, I was playing with the 12-year-old. And grew up with doing that. Baseball was actually was the sport that I thought that I was going to get a chance to play. I did play Little League and Pony League all the way up to American League and high school. Played high school basketball and football. I did all three in high school. Didn't do track because I wasn't fast enough to do track. So they told me don't worry about that part. But growing up in Zachary was one of those situations where when you grow up, you got everybody around you and you feel like everybody lives the way you do. You know, didn't have a lot growing up, but we had great togetherness and family time, and the people who live next door to you, in front of you or whatever, you know, it was all family because they had the right to do whatever it took when your mom and your dad was at work, wasn't at home. Mr. Will, Miss Matt, Miss Roach, Mr. Johnny Wall, Miss Mary. I can remember all of them. You know, they had the right to tell you to come there and take their belt off or switch or whatever, and tan your honey, as they used to say. And she made sure. You know, it was 6 of us. It was 8 altogether, but the 2 older ones had gone on. But it was 6 of us in the house, so. It was a lot of fighting over there between the families, but at the same time, we could fight between each other, but you couldn't fight from somebody else. That wasn't going to happen. But we grew up, man. You know, I grew up like I thought every American grew up. We had a lot of love in the house. Like I said, didn't have a lot, but we was all right. We didn't miss no meals, and my mom made sure of that, so that was a good thing.
Well, a tight family, is that something that you carried on in your life, that familyness and that togetherness that you had growing up?
Ain't nothing like family, man. You know, we even today, we have a family app where we got about 25 on the family, and like birthdays, like we got somebody who has a birthday every day, whether or not it's a grandkid, a niece, a nephew, or whoever. But you know, it's nothing like before my mom passed. during the holidays, all the furniture, we used to say all the furniture in the house was covered because you had all the grandbabies, the great-grandbabies, the kids, and everybody was there. And it's still that way today. Unfortunately for me, I'm up here in Virginia. I don't get home as much as I would like to and can't participate in a lot of things. But, I go on Facebook and on Instagram and telephone, FaceTime, or what have you, and see what's going on. And I tell you what, they still be having a good time and a lot of togetherness, man. And nothing like family.
Yeah, social media, the pluses of it is that it helps keep families together. As you said, you're from a distance from them currently. As you said, you played several different sports. You went on to high school. Were you playing all those sports in high school as well?
Yeah, I played all three of those in high school: basketball, baseball, and football. Like I said earlier, I thought if I had a chance to play professionally, it was going to be in baseball. Football, when I was, believe it or not, when I was ninth grade, I was a 5'5". I was 5'5" in ninth grade. And, I can remember I was a trainer my 7th and 8th grade year for the football team. And I remember going to Coach Lucas, bless his soul. And I said, Coach, I'm going to play football this year. I was ninth grade. He told me, he said, little boy, you better get back here behind this cage and pass out this equipment. I said, no, Coach. So I got me a pair of shoes. They was mismatched. Back in the day, you got to take what you can get, and you go on the field, pants barely fit you. But I went out there and hey, I thought I was a quarterback. I probably was 4th, 5th string in ninth grade, but had the strongest arm out of everybody on the field. On Friday evenings, on Thursday evenings before the Friday night game, we used to always have a throwing contest. And I always beat everybody throwing, and Coach Lucas said, little boy, you can throw that football, can't you? And, the next year I grew up. I was skinny, but I got taller, got to be over the summer, about 6 feet tall. And still was the backup quarterback, And also what I did, too, I snapped on punts, and I ran down on the kickoff team. So not that I was hitting anybody, but I was on them. And eventually my junior year, the starting quarterback hurt his ankle. And I went in and became the quarterback for the rest of the year. And my senior year, that's what happened. And I guess I played well enough or decent enough to kind of get the attention of the guy who was recruiting for Grambling. At that time, the NC2A wasn't as strict on alumni recruiting for colleges. And they had this one guy that lived down in Baton Rouge, and he made sure that all the players in that area that was good enough to play at Grambling got a chance. And, he came to me and my wide receiver, James Smith, he said, I want to sign both of y'all to go to Grambling. And Coach Rob had never seen Coach Rob, but what had happened was Coach Rob had called my house late one night. We had a party line. I don't know whether you know anything about what a party line is, but we had 11 people on one party line. And late one night, my mom woke me up, and she said, "Hey, you going to Grambling?" I said, "How you know I'm going to Grambling?" She said, "I just got off the phone with Coach Robinson, and he said that you was gonna go to class, you was gonna go to church, and you was gonna graduate, and so you going to Grambling." And I think that's one of the best situations my mom has ever made. Well, except for bring me into this world, that's the second best situation. But no, she told me that, and I ended up going to Grambling, man, and everything else worked out.
Were you being recruited by some other schools as well?
Yeah, but back in 1973, when I graduated, the South wasn't ready for black quarterbacks in the Power 5, SEC, and places like that. So the teams the schools that recruited me was like Tennessee State, Jackson State, Mississippi Valley, and Southern University. Those was the guys that recruited me, and I wanted to go to Southern in my mind because it would have been close for my mom to come and see me play, and only 20 minutes away from Zachary. But my oldest brother had went to Grambling, and everybody who had went to my high school, Cheneyville High School, seemed to have gone to Grambling. And it was almost a conceived idea that I had no choice but to go to Grambling. And at the end of the day, I'm glad I did choose Grambling, and because everything worked out for the better.
Yeah, 1974 to 1977, you're there at Grambling, playing for Eddie Robinson, the legendary head coach. What was it like playing for him? Again, he told your mom what you were going to do. What did he tell you? How tough of a coach was he on you?
Coach Robinson, man, was a guy, he kind of hard to explain the way, but he was a guy that didn't meet strangers. When he met a lot of people, man, everybody loved standing up talking to Coach, because Coach could talk. I mean, he could talk to anybody, anywhere, any place. But on the field, as a coach, when it came to work, you had to work, because before the NC2A put in those hour restrictions, you can only work 20 hours a week. Back now, you can only work 20 hours a week. But when Coach Robinson was at Grambling and I was at Grambling, at that time there was no such thing as 20 hours a week. Because we went on the practice field at 3:45 every day, and we got off at 7:30. It didn't matter. It was going to be anywhere from 3 to 3.5 hours a day. And then, if he didn't like practice, you came back that night. He'd tell you we're going to spend an hour out there, and you end up spending 2.5 hours. But Coach Robinson was a guy that every day you go to class, when you pass by his office, he was standing to see who was going to class. And I've never seen a guy that every day had on a suit and tie. And he was doing it by example, because when we traveled, we had to wear a tie. So he was letting you know it ain't that bad, because he wore one every day. But on the practice field, when things was over and we sat around and talked, Coach Rob didn't really talk about the X's and the O's. He talked about what it takes to be a good American, what it takes to be able to take care of yourself, what you need to do to put yourself in position to offend for your family and stuff like that. He made sure that we understood that it wasn't just about football. He didn't worry about the pros. He never recruited anybody and said, you got a chance to go to pro. That wasn't his thing. His thing was, you got a chance to graduate, man. That's what it's all about. And to me, that registered a lot, because we had a lot of guys who didn't go to pro that played, but put themselves in position. If you go back and check Coach Robinson graduation rates, you realize that it's real high, because he made sure we understood what we was in college for. And it wasn't just to play football. He always said, if you're lucky enough to make it, hell damn it, can't nobody stop you. That's how he felt. He used to tell us all the time that, we from this little school in North Louisiana. We don't have much, but we get a lot out of it. He used to tell us all the time that we've done so much with so little, we can almost do anything without nothing. And, that was something that we believed in. And the thing about it, when you talk about a team, you had never had to worry about the guys not being together. They all believed in each other. It was family. When you talk, I hear people talk about now, it's like family. Nah, during that time when I was at Grambling, it was family. And around the area, it was a close-knit community. You can go, I can look at it now, going to Miss Bessie McKinney's house on Sunday, eating some of them red beans, because you can go to somebody on that campus. You got a chance to go to somebody's house who either work on the campus or live around that campus. And, you couldn't be in a better situation.
Yeah, so for you, that family atmosphere continued in your college years there at Grambling. And you talk about off the field and going to class, but on the field, you guys are pretty darn good. 3 SWAC championships during your time there. And in 1977, your senior season was really good for you. Tell us about that year. And you're a finalist for the Heisman Trophy from Grambling State. What did that say about you and your performance that season?
Well, before the season started that summer, my brothers and I, we always played softball during the summer. And I was getting ready to go to a softball tournament that Saturday morning. And College J. Nicholson, who was the SID at that time, bless his soul, he called me. He said, hey, man, He said, we're going to put you up for the Heisman. And I looked at him. I didn't look at him, but I took the phone. I looked at the phone. I said, what you say? He said, we're going to put you up for the Heisman. I kind of chuckled. I said, oh, okay. All right, college, do whatever, man. That's good. He said, okay, I just want to let you know. And lo and behold, it worked out. He put me up for the Heisman. And, when you look at what really transpired in 1977, to finish fourth, and I know Walter Payton, they went before me, finished seventh, I think. But to finish fourth in the Heisman, I think to me it's like winning it, going to Grambling. A little small black college up in North Louisiana. And the worst thing about the Heisman that year was I wasn't invited. I was in the top four, but wasn't invited. And they wanted to know why. But, it didn't bother me because actually we played in Tokyo during the time they had the Heisman. And they had prepared or made some arrangements for me to, if I was going to go to the Heisman, to lead the Heisman and fly to Tokyo. But it didn't happen, so I went on with the team. And after that game in Tokyo, we played Temple. And after that game in Tokyo, we had to come back with about 3 minutes and 15 seconds left in the game. We had to drive 85 yards for the winning score. And we did that. And after the game in the locker room, Coach Robinson, he stood up, he got emotional about it. And he said he don't give a damn what anybody say. He said, we got the Heisman Trophy winner in our room. And he said, Doug Williams is the damn Heisman Trophy winner. And that was one of the highest compliments that you can get paid by your coach, Coach Eddie Robinson. And that's what he did, especially when you think about how many players over the years that he had coached before me that was great players. And that's what made it so significant.
Well, you were certainly deserving. You led the NCAA in yards from scrimmage, passing yards, and touchdown passes with 38 as well. And it took somebody like Earl Campbell to beat you out. He was the Heisman Trophy winner that year in 1977. So at least it was a very good running back from Texas, but certainly I'm sure from Texas got a little bit more notoriety maybe than you did from Grambling State.
Well, I'm not so sure that Earl wouldn't have won it anyway, but they had two guys that was in front of me. The second and the third guy, was Ken McAfee from Notre Dame and Terry Miller from Oklahoma State. Those two was ahead of me, and I finished fourth. And I'm sure because I went to a small black college in Grambling. And, I certainly think that Earl Campbell was a hell of a running back, and he proved that in the league. So I have no qualms about it. I'm satisfied with the fact that I finished fourth. In my mind, coming from a small black college, finishing fourth is something that you can't just turn your nose up to. And that's the good part about it.
Yeah, certainly you brought some more recognition to, Grambling State and HBCU here in the United States. You look at that year, then you had a great year. It's time for the draft coming up. I'm sure you're expecting a lot of people to come scout you. There was one person there to take a look at you. Tell us who that guy was.
Well, at that time, I don't know whether you realize it or anybody else, but my senior year when I finished college, and you look at it today, you can laugh at my numbers, which it was funny back. It's funny today compared to back then.
Yeah.
But when I left Grambling, I was the all-time leading passer in NC2A history, and you're talking about 8,400 yards, 93 TDs. 38 TDs my senior year, but now you go to sleep in 5 games, now quarterbacks are throwing that. It's something to laugh at. But during that year, we had scouts come by, but it was one general manager that came to Grambling probably about 3 or 4 times that year, and that was Kenny Herock, who was the general manager of Tampa Bay. And when the season was over, there's only one coach who came to see me. And that was Coach Joe Gibbs. He was in Tampa at that time, and I was doing student teaching. Just like today, they got all these guys coming in for visit and stuff like that. But back then, the coaches went out and visited players. So Coach Gibbs came to visit me, and I was at Carroll High School doing student teaching, And coach came in and, the principal said, we got somebody up here want to see you. I said, okay. So coach came in and I met coach and, he said, no, don't worry about me. Just go on, do what you're doing. We was in health at that time. So I had the PE classes come in and coach just sat back there all day in the back of the room. Didn't say a word. A lot of the students wanted to know, why is this guy in here? But nobody knew. And he sat there for 2 days. And every day that the students would leave, him and I would sit around, talk about life, talk about football in general, go to the board. And he wanted to know our offense, what we ran at Grambling. We ran the wing T at Grambling. So he wanted me to diagram some of our plays. I think what it was about, to see that I remember how our plays work. And he felt like if he can do that, he can comprehend and retain what we got to do up here in the league. And I did that every day. He said, what's your favorite play? And draw it up for me. What are some of the plays y'all run? And, try to tell them how it happened. We even was to our left and R was to our right, which is not the way most people do it, But when you learn the system, that's the system that you learn. And I learned that system, and any play that we had, I basically drew it up every play that we ran at that time. And, and he left and went back to Tampa. And I guess he gave Coach McKay some good vibes, and they ended up drafting me in the 17th pick. But at the same time, they had the number 1 pick. If you don't remember, they had the number 1 pick of that year, and they traded it to Houston for Earl Campbell. I can't beat Earl Campbell. So that's just the way it goes.
So there you go. So Earl Campbell goes to the Oilers. History made there, but your history is being made. You said, again, off of Gibbs's recommendation, you get drafted by Tampa Bay. What were you thinking going to Tampa Bay at that time? And again, John McKay, former USC coach, now the head coach of the Buccaneers. Did you think that was a good fit for you?
Well, let me say, I thought it was the perfect fit because of this. When I was coming out of high school, I said to myself, there's only 2 coaches I wanted to play for, Eddie Robinson or John McKay. Why John McKay? Because in 1965-66, he had a black quarterback, and so you saw that on television. So I felt like for him, it wasn't a big deal to have a black quarterback. So I felt like if I was going to play for anybody, it was going to be Eddie Robinson or John McKay. And when I was drafted by Tampa, man, I thought I was the luckiest man in the world. And, I didn't know about all the business and stuff like that about playing professional football. All I knew was playing football. I know they hadn't won a lot of games, but that didn't bother me because I felt like we turned that around. And getting drafted and going down to Tampa and meeting the guys. And, it just became a bond right off the bat, and I got in there and Coach Gibbs gave me an opportunity to play. When I first got there, contract was a problem. I sat out the first week, so I didn't go in. So when I did come back in, Joe Gibbs took me to his house every day.
Wow.
Every day of training camp. After practice, I went home with Coach Gibbs and we went over the playbooks. We went over the playbooks every day. I sat at his table. I ate dinner with him and his family. JD, Carr, and his wife, Pat. She fixed meals every day. I ate when we were going through the playbooks and everything. He would bring me back home. So, a lot of that credit has to go to Joe Gibbs for the man that he is and the opportunity that I had down there at that 1 year in Tampa with him.
Yeah, certainly it started a long life relationship, I'm sure, that you've had with Gibbs. And, you look back again in 1978 in the first round, you're drafted, a first of many as the first black quarterback drafted in the first round of the NFL draft. Did you see yourself at the time as kind of a pioneer, a trailblazer for guys coming behind you?
No, because Eldridge Dickens was drafted in the first round, but to play wide receiver. And then that was Shaq Harris. He was with the Rams, Buffalo and the Rams, and finished up in San Diego. And then Marlon Briscoe had played. And Vince Evans was in the league, but, they wasn't playing per se. And, I never looked at it from a pioneer standpoint. I always felt like, I was on the coattail of James Harris and Marlon Briscoe and those guys. I think when you talk about pioneers, you got to give those guys the credit for being that guy. And to this day, James Harris and I, we still talk. And it's just one of them things that I appreciate that he was there to be able to talk about the National Football League and the things that happens in it.
Well, as you said, you were given the chance to play quarterback, and you succeeded. Playoffs 3 out of the 5 years you're with Tampa Bay as well. What was the challenge at that time? They were still a relatively new franchise. They were founded in 1976. So, was it hard for you to have that type of success with that organization at that time?
I really don't think so, because I think we had a bunch of good guys and a bunch of good football players. Now, I think when I look back on it as a guy that's played the game and been in personnel, the one thing I look back on is what we didn't do in Tampa, and that was to make sure we had a great offensive line. I think if we had spent a little more time on the offense as far as the offensive line, we would have been a lot better. Defensively, you can't say enough about the way the defense played. The defense always put us in a position that we had a chance to win. And Coach McKay used to always tell them, say, hey, guys, you keep it close. He said, Dougie will find a way to win it. And that's the part that, I think when you look back on it, we had an offensive line, it would have been the offense, not Dougie will find a way to win it. It would have been us. And I think that's the part that we missed by building an offensive line.
Well, certainly it's nice for your coach to have confidence in you. Again, you're there 8 years, 78 to 1982. You went for the NFC Championship back in 79, lost that unfortunately. And then, as you said, a little bit of the business of the NFL came into play, it looked like. And you wanted one thing, they wanted another thing when it came to the financial part of it. And you went to the USFL. Tell us about that. Take us through that and what transpired.
Well, yeah, it was 5 years, from 78 to 82, and then you become a free agent, but you're not a free agent. Let's say that, it's not like today's free agent. Back then, if you become a free agent, if another team signed you, you got to give up 2 first-round picks. And, the Raiders wanted to try to trade for me, but they wouldn't trade to the Raiders because the owner at that time didn't like Al Davis, so that didn't happen. So 83, my first wife passed away. I had a baby girl, and the contract wasn't going well. And my mentality was the fact that, well, you know what? It ain't about football anyway. I just lost my wife, and I got a little girl to take care of. I always wanted to be a high school coach because my oldest brother was a coach. I say, I just go home and be a coach. And, my daddy got his leg amputated then too. So I had a lot of things going on at that particular time. So football wasn't important to me. So, I say, you know what? I'm going home. I went home to Zachary. My oldest brother was a principal at Northwestern Middle School. So I went there and became a substitute teacher every day at his school, every day. And then I got a call from the Tatum, Bill Tatum, who the USFL hadn't started, been around a year. But this was a new organization that was going to start up the following year in 1984 in Oklahoma. And he asked me would I want to be part of his team and not only that, part of his family. And, we talked. He came down, and he made it seem like it ain't about football. It's about family. So I decided to sign with the Oklahoma Outlaws. I did that. Spent a year just going places where we had players try out for the team, and I was always at the tryouts and things like that. And the next year, in 1984, the team formed in Oklahoma. We became the Oklahoma Outlaws. And at Skelly Stadium in Tulsa, Oklahoma, we played every home game in either rain or sleet or snow. Every home game. And we did pretty decent. We finished like 500 somewhere around that neighborhood. And the next year they folded. I don't say folded. I think what they did, we transferred from Oklahoma and became the Arizona Outlaws with Frank Cush as my head coach. So, I had a chance to be coached by Frank Cush. Woodenhofer, Eddie Robinson, and Coach McKay. You know, that's a great number of people to coach and be a part of, man. And we were out in Oklahoma, and you know, I wasn't really happy in Oklahoma. I mean, not in Oklahoma, in Arizona, but the owners was too nice to me. Was real nice, and you know, we made it work. And lo and behold, the season, it was no more USFL. You know, 86 we wasn't going to play. And I'm sitting around with nobody to talk to, no phone calls, no nothing. And sooner or later, my phone rings. You know, Joe Theismann has gotten hurt in 85. He had broke his ankle in 1985. And they had a young quarterback here, Jay Schrader. And Joe Gibbs, again, came to the rescue. He called me. He said, Douglas. He one of the only few guys that called me Douglas. He said, Joe Gibbs. I said, hey, Coach, how you doing? You know, he said, nothing, man. How you doing? I told him how I was doing. He said, yeah. He said, I'm calling you. I want to find out, could you come to Washington to be a backup? I kind of laughed a little bit at him. You know, I say, Coach, I said, I can be any up you want me to be because I don't have a job. So he said, okay, I'm going to put you on the phone with Bobby Belton. So I got on the phone with Bobby Belton, and, you know, we worked out a deal, and I flew to Washington. And in 86, then I threw one pass in all of 86. And that's what 86 was all about, you know, and I became a Washington Redskins, and thanks to Joe Gibbs again.
Well, that's a crazy 5-year span for you. You know, personal loss. You know, you had your comfort, I'm sure, in Tampa Bay, and that doesn't go well. You go to the USFL. That doesn't last as long as maybe you wanted it to. What was it like mentally for you during that stretch to eventually get back with Joe Gibbs and to get, as you said, with the Washington Redskins as a backup?
Well, the good thing about me mentally, I thought it was good because, you know, like I say, what I had working for me was a great family. You know, my oldest brother was my mentor. So I had people that, from a support standpoint, no matter what I chose to do, they was going to be for it. If I decided not to play anymore, went home and became a high school coach or a teacher, that would have been all right with them. But I went on because you know, my mom and one of my youngest sisters, Jackie, and my mom, you know, my little girl, Ashley, you know, they say, you go do what you got to do. Go play. She's in great hands. And, you know, I take my hat off to my mom, bless her soul, and my sister Jackie for doing what they had to do to make sure that Ashley was all right. And mentally, you know, I always talk to my oldest brother, Robert, and then James Harris was there. You know, I talk to people all the time. And, you know, my mindset and my mental state of mind was real good at that time. It's just that if the league folded and you know, don't know what you're going to do, and then you get a call out to Washington, and you go straight to Washington. And when I walked in here, you know, with all the guys that was veterans, had been to the Super Bowl a couple of times, you know, I thought I had died and went to heaven. And then I'm in D.C. You know, I couldn't ask for a better place to end up than in Washington.
Yeah, so you're there, like you said, you didn't do much in 86, 87. It's a strike season, right? It's shortened season.
Right.
So you're coming out of that. You know, what was your goal that year? You and Schrader were kind of vying for that starting spot. I know you guys didn't have the best of relationships maybe, but, you know, what did you approach, or how did you approach 1987?
Well, in 1987, you know, Jay was the starter, you know, and the way I looked at that was the fact that, hey, he the starter, I'm the backup. But mentally, you know, I didn't look at it as I was a backup because I've been a starter all my life. So, you know, I prepared for a starter, you know, and I think that was the most important thing. Any backup quarterback, you know, if you've been a starter before, that's how you got to prepare, that you are the starter. You know, I didn't want to go in there and have one game that people say, hey, that was a great game. I want to go in there and say, hey, he could play. And I think I did that. And, you know, the first game of that season, I remember Jay getting hurt, and I went in and we still ended up winning the game against the Philadelphia Eagles. He got hurt in the first quarter, and I became the quarterback, and we won, you know, which tells me, and Coach Gibbs, I think what Coach Gibbs, he felt good about was the fact that if something should happen to Jay, we got dug. I think he saw it firsthand at that particular time because, his thing was, if you get hurt as a starter, you don't lose your job. You just got to get well before you come back and play. And I think when Jay got well, he came back and played. And then I went in a couple of times, other times during the year, and bailed it out. We came back and we won those games. And the last thing, I think the straw that broke the camel back was the fact that we was in Minnesota, the last game of the season, and we was going to the playoff anyway, but we was losing. And Coach Gibbs called me and put me in, and we came back and we ended up winning the game. And at his post press conference, he announced that going into the playoff that Doug Williams was going to be his starting quarterback. It was a surprise to me because I had no idea what he was going to say, and I'm sure none of the players, Jay and anybody else, knew what Joe Gibbs was going to say. So he said that, and I'm shocked. I'm on there playing, saying, "Dang," and now I got to get my mindset right that you ain't the backup no more. You the starter. That was my mindset, and the rest is history, from that standpoint.
Yeah, how did that decision play out in the locker room going into the playoffs?
Well, I can tell you this: it wasn't anybody who was disappointed. I think the offensive line loved it, because with me, they knew exactly where I was going to be. Matter of fact, Coach Buggs, bless his soul, he called me pocket. He told the offensive line, he said, "Guys, you just give him the pocket. You know where he's going to be. He ain't going to be outside. He's going to be right here in the pocket, and let's do our job." And that's what they did, and as far as all other players, the receivers and everybody else, but they have no little groups over here and over there saying, I want Doug and I want Jay. It wasn't like that. It was the fact that we got Doug. Let's roll.
Well, you guys rolled all the way into the Super Bowl XII. Is it true that you had a root canal the day before the Super Bowl? Is that true?
Yes. What happened that Saturday morning, usually teams move to hotels on the Saturday after practice. So that Saturday morning when I got up, I had a pain in my tooth, man, and it was on my left side. It was killing me. And I went to the team dentist and I said, Dr. Barrett, I said, man, my toothache. He took a look. He said, and he told Coach Gibbs that we got to go to the dentist. So I went down to La Jolla, right outside of San Diego, and man, they took x-rays and they said, we got to do a root canal. And for 4 hours, I sat there and they worked on me. They did that root canal. And, when I got back to the hotel, they was packing their bags, putting it on the bus, getting ready to go. So I went and got my bag and put it on the bus and took the ride out to Lawrence Welk Resort. And when we got there, Lawrence Welk music was playing. I'm in the room, and if you know Lawrence Welk at all, and you know what kind of music play, it's that music that just go through your bones, just chill you a little bit. And when I walked in the room, I said, man, we got to turn that music off. I can't listen to that music with this too. It's like it was going in and just, But that night, I'm sitting there and I'm got the playbook and I got a bag of Hershey Kisses. I always had a bag of Hershey Kisses on the night for the game. And I'm trying to find out, man, how I'm going to eat these Kisses. And I said, you know what? I'm going to eat these. So I would unwrap them and put them on my right side, and they just melted away. Should I ate the whole bag of Hershey Kisses? I got up the next morning. I had no pain. I mean, not nowhere. No pain, no anything, no nerves or anything. And I went in and ate breakfast, man, and, we got ready to leave. I got on the bus, driving into San Diego to the stadium. And, I'm just on the bus looking around, man, thinking about how did I get here? What road did you travel to get here? And what you had to do to be here. I just thought about so many people that had a reason for me to be there, and people I played with, people who cheered for me. Now I'm playing in the Super Bowl today. That was going through my mind. Coach Robinson and everything was going through my mind at that particular time.
Yeah, it's easy to say, oh, it's just another game, but it's not. It's a Super Bowl. Obviously, now it's even bigger than it was back in 1987. But was it difficult to keep those emotions in check and then go out and perform as well as you did in that Super Bowl?
Well, you know what? I felt like I had to. I didn't have a choice. I had to keep things in perspective. And my perspective was it's a football game. I know it's a Super Bowl, but it ain't for you. It's the game that's for you. You got to keep it between the lines. You got to be able to execute. So that was the most important thing for me, is to realize I knew I was the first black quarterback playing in the Super Bowl. I knew that. Nobody had to tell me that. But then you'd say, man, what if I don't do this, and what if this doesn't happen? Then you say to yourself, don't worry about that. Just go out and play your game. You got a team that you can play with. I had a good team to play with. So I say, hey, you know what? I'm just part of the team. And it ain't all on me. And at the end of the day, that's exactly what happened. It wasn't all on me. It's on us. And we performed well as a team.
Well, you individually performed well. Give yourself some credit. 18 of 29, 340 yards, 4 touchdown passes. You had a number of records since broken, a lot of them by Joe Montana, which isn't too shabby either, to have him break your records. But to be, as you said, the first black quarterback to play in the Super Bowl and then the MVP as well. What was your reaction when you found out that you were the MVP of the Super Bowl, Super Bowl XII?
Right. One record Joe can't break, though. He wasn't the first black to play.
That's right. That one's not going to be broken by Joe Montana. There you go.
No,
you will always have that one.
There was so many players on that field. First of all, you credit the defense who gave us a chance, gave us the football. You got to give the defense
you won
credit.
42-10, so the defense.
Timmy Smith ran for 204 yards.
Yeah.
Ricky Sanders had 193 yard pass receiver. You had an offensive line that gave me the time to do what I had to do. And so when you look at this thing, man, being MVP is great. Ain't no doubt about that. But if it had went somewhere else, you could have dealt with it, because what happened, I say all the time, we scored 35 points in 18 plays. And that was because the defense gave us the football. Offensive line did a great job blocking, and the receivers did what they had to do to make it happen.
Yeah, again, 42-10, the final score. So the defense did their job. You certainly did your job, as you're seeing some of the highlights here. And again, what was it like? Coming off of this now, if you're the Super Bowl MVP, you've got endorsement deals and everything else. What was it like back in 1987 for you?
I don't know how many endorsement deals I had, but it wasn't a big thing. The endorsement didn't come my way. I think we kind of disrupt endorsements, because that wasn't what they was expected. It didn't happen the way they wanted it to happen. So there wasn't a whole lot of endorsement. They probably had one, but other than that, it wasn't a whole lot of endorsement. But, at the end of the day, you want endorsement, you want to make the money and all that. But at the end of the day, we was able to accomplish something that nobody could take away, and that was world champion on the biggest stage there were at that particular time. And that's how I looked at it. It's kind of like when walking off that field, man, I didn't know Coach Robinson was at the game. That's the thing that blew me away, because Coach Robinson was waiting on me in the tunnel. The NFL brought Coach Robinson in, and we hugged each other, and we both were throwing snot all over the place. We both was crying. And he told me, he said, Cat, he said, you don't understand. He said, he said, it wasn't about the 4 TDs that you threw. He said, it's the fact that you got off the turf. He always should tell about getting up off the turf if you get knocked down. And that's what he told me. It was the fact that you got off the turf, and hell damn it, and you lit him up. He said, it's just like Joe Louis knocking out Matt Snelling. That's exactly what he told me.
Well, you're able to win a championship for Joe Gibbs, someone, again, your relationship was strong, and then to see your college coach, Eddie Robinson, there. Again, you go back to family. It's run through your life, right? Family is always there, whether it's your immediate family or your college family, your professional family as well.
Yeah, ain't no doubt about it. I think, man, family is something that I think I wish everybody had the same thing that I was able to grow up with, but it's not like that. But you kind of tell people that it is about family. at the end of the day, just like now, I still got a lot of family members who call, we talk, and when I go home, man, they all come into the house. It's something that you can't pay for, you can't orchestrate. It's just something that happened, and that's what family is all about.
So again, you win the Super Bowl in 1987, the MVP, going into 88, still battling for that top spot, right? Mark Rippon comes into the picture as a quarterback as well. What was 88 and 89 like for you? And did you go in assuming that you were going to be the guy?
No, yeah, I did go. I was the guy going in '88, and things didn't happen the way that I would like for it to happen. And I can remember playing against the 49ers in '88, and after the game, Bill Walsh, bless his soul, he walked up to me. He just told me, he said, "Hey, man, young man," he said, "you some kind of competitor." That resonate with you. But at the end of the day, we did not have a good season. And Mark Rippon was coming up, and I understood that. I'm, I guess, 33, 34 at that time. I didn't have Brady type of mentality that I would be here till I'm 60, but I was dead at that time. That was pretty old for a player, and it was getting close to that time, and Coach Gibbs made some decisions, and so you had to live with it.
You were released. How were you released? Did Joe Gibbs let you know?
Yeah. No, I had a. It's crazy because he called me in. Coach wasn't gonna cut you without him talking to you. He called me in. He said, "Douglas." So we talked for a while. He said, "Hey man, you good?" I said, "Yeah, Coach, I'm good as I can be." He said, "Look, we're gonna let you. We're gonna cut you." And I looked at him. He said, "We're gonna bring in Jeff Rutledge." And it wasn't a slight of Jeff. It was just that I told Coach, I said, "Coach," I said, a banged up Doug Williams could beat a Jeff Rutledge playing any day. Because I'd had a back surgery and all that. But he told me, he was honest. He said, "Look," he said, "we're going Mark Rippon, young guy." He said, "The one thing I don't want is to be in that stadium and Mark is not playing well. And I don't want the crowd to go, 'We want Doug.'" I say, "I got you, Coach." I say, "But this is my lifetime too. My livelihood." He said, "I understand that," and that was it. And we didn't speak for a while. We did not speak for a while, and I was in Mobile at the Senior Bowl, and Coach was at Senior Bowl. I didn't go to Coach. I didn't go say nothing to Coach because, I was still a little hot up under the collar. I'm talking about probably 3 years later. And he sent Don Bro, the running back coach, over to me. He said, "Doug," I said, "Yeah." He said, "Coach want to see you this evening at his hotel." I said, "Okay." He told me what his hotel room, what his number was. I went over there. And walked in the coach room, Douglas, and we sat down and we talked it off. I said, "Coach, I'm all right." I said, "I'm good." He felt some kind of way that, he released me up under those conditions, but at the same time, he understood that our relationship was stronger than that because of where it started and the way it ended. And I told him I was good. I appreciate everything he did for me, giving me this opportunity. And to this day, he called me. He called me sometimes sitting in the office. I called him. We still got that relationship.
Yeah, as you said, I mean, you were eating at his house. He was taking you to practice, from practice, so you could tell that's a bond that the business side of professional sports certainly can't break. And it's great to see that you guys are still on great terms with one another. So unfortunately, all pro athletes have to come to a realization that their career is over. When you realized that, what were you thinking? What was going to be your next step? And it eventually became coaching, but were you thinking along those lines?
Well, you know what? When I first got released, I got a call from the Raiders to come out and work out. And remember, Jay Schrader was with the Raiders at that time. And I did go. Coach Arshell was the coach, had a great workout. I thought it was a great workout, and came in, and I went to Al Davis' office. sat down in his office. We was talking, and he asked me, would I stay in the area for a week? I say for a week. He said, yeah. He said, I just want to make sure whatever decision I make is the right decision. And at that time, mentally, I told Coach, because if it was going to happen, it was going to happen that day. And I told Al, I said, nah. I said, I'm just going to go home. I'm not going to worry about it. And that was it. And, mentally, my mind was set up. Coaching is what I always wanted to do. So, I got a chance to do that a couple of times at my old high school and another brand new school. I went to Morehouse. Went to Grambling twice. I've had some opportunities, and I enjoyed it, And when I look back on it, I don't know whether I should have took Al on it or not, but at the same time, I'm not looking back on it and saying I'm sorry for not doing it.
Well, you mentioned you coached at Grambling. You didn't just coach here. You succeeded your head coach, Eddie Robinson. After 57 years, he finally retired, and you're the one who takes over. How involved was he in the hiring process, and were you the guy that he thought, was the guy who can succeed him?
Well, I don't know how much Coach was involved in it, because, 57 years in one place is a long time. And then you had a lot of people, didn't want Coach to step down. So I don't know. It's like they always say you can always go home. This is one of those situations where going home wasn't up under the best conditions. Let me say that. And when I was chosen by Peter Piper, who's gone on too, bless his soul, was the AD to be the head coach. Coach Robinson wasn't involved, but Coach Robinson was still in his office. And I was not going to be the one to tell Coach he was in my office. No, that's his office. Because my thing is, Coach Robinson is a guy that you don't replace Eddie Robinson. You bronze his shoes and you put him on the pedestal. So what I did, that was a trailer outside the office. So I went to the trailer. My office was in the trailer, man, because Coach Rob he could have stayed there till the cows come home. I'd have been all right. So eventually things got to the point that, Coach Rob, it didn't hurt our relationship because we talked almost every day. And it just got to the point that Coach Rob, I think, came to grip with it, and everybody else around him came to grip with it. Coach Rob used to come to practice every day. The first 2 years was like a growing up year. We recruited a lot of young guys. We played them. We finished like 5-6, and next year we finished like 7-4. And the next 3 years we were SWAC champions. So we gave the young guys a chance to play and grow up. So we got to that point that we got a solid team. And we won 3 straight SWAC champions. Then we was recruiting with guys. It was good recruiting because they was coming in, taking the place of the guys that were leaving out. And, back in 2004, John Gruden called me and asked me that I want to come to Tampa in 2003. And he had asked me the year before, and I told him that when the year they won the Super Bowl, he asked me that I want to come to Tampa. I told him, man, I'm having too much fun coaching college football. He said, okay. And then the next year, after they won the Super Bowl, I spoke at the mini camp the year they won the Super Bowl. I thought maybe they owed me a ring for speaking at the mini camp, but I didn't get that ring. But the next following year, he asked me the same question. I told him, yeah. And I told the AD and I told the president that I was going to Tampa, but neither one of them really believed me. They thought I was fibbing. So when the thing came in for me to go to Tampa, they all were scrambling, trying to find out, let's do a contract, let's do this. And I said, nah, I've already agreed to go to Tampa. And went to Tampa from 2003 to 2008. Sat there, and eventually Grambling came calling again. I went back to Grambling for 2 years and won the championship when I first got there. The next year we had a bunch of guys, the young guys was trying to build. We got our brains beat out, and the president and I, we wasn't on the same page. He was a different kind of guy. And, he told me that he was going different directions. So I said, good. He went different direction. So he sent me up to this direction where I am today.
Yeah, I mean, you were successful as a coach, as you said, 3 SWAC championships. You were the coach of the year in the SWAC, one of your tenures there at Grambling State. And then, you go to the executive side. What attracted you to that side of the game, being an executive, because you were with Tampa Bay, Virginia Destroyers, and now back with Washington as well. What attracted you to that?
Being around football, and seeing so many players. You talk about personnel, I thought maybe, for me, I mean, I can go out and scout guys and know whether or not a guy can play, whether or not he can make a team better. And I did that and enjoyed it, And at the end of the day, man, it's nothing like bringing in a player that does well and, and you had a hand in it. Not that you're the reason why it happened, but the fact that your report says what he could and could be, what he couldn't do and all that. But at the end of the day, personnel is something that should inspire anybody who's in it.
Well, again, you grew up and as a quarterback had a big arm. What in your mind makes a good quarterback now?
I don't think it's so much the big arm, which means it don't hurt to have a big arm. I think quarterback got to come in now. It's so much different from when I came in. You got to be able to mix in with the guys that you're going to be playing with offensively and defensively. You got to come in to be that leader. If you're not a leader, to be honest with you, if you're not a leader coming in, the chance of you being a leader, it ain't going to happen. You got to be that guy coming in. You got to believe in you. You got to believe in the people that are working with. And the other part is, you got to spend time in the building. You got to be that guy that they run out the building, tell you it's time to go, flick the light on you. You got to be able to watch tape and know what everybody is doing on the field and everybody on the other team is doing on the field. That's what I like about Peyton Manning and Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, man. I'm looking at him, I'm saying, Tom Brady would frustrate me if I was a defensive coordinator, because when he walks up to the line, it seems like he knows what everybody's doing. And I think if you're a quarterback, that should be the kind of person you want to be, that guy that you watch enough tape that you almost know what the defense going to do and the coverages, where your receiver's going to be, that, you don't have to look for them. You know where they're going to be, and whenever you turn to throw it, they're there. I think the quarterback got to spend a lot of time around the building.
You mentioned earlier you're doing whatever the organization is asking you to do, whatever they need you to do. But you're a special advisor to the president, Jason Wright. Is there one thing that you do specifically? Do you look at personnel at all?
No, I don't. Think about it. If, Ron came in and he brought in his own people, and he wanted them to be those personnel guys. So you know what? You don't want to step on anybody's toes. And so I don't step on anybody's toes. I talk to Martin Mayhew a lot, but, I'm not in the personnel. I don't sit in the meetings. I don't watch the tape. And, the only thing I see is what they did during the football season. And you can't really tell a player by just looking at that. So the most important thing is stay in your lane, as they always say. I didn't make it this far not being in my lane. So, whatever Jason want to do, what I do, I go visit with him. Like tomorrow night, we're going to be out and about, going to visit people who got suites and stuff like that, going to dinners and going to meetings and things like that. And it ain't bad. When you've been around as long as I've been around, it's good that they want you around. I think that's the most important thing.
Well, you're named one of the 80 greatest Washington players. You're in the Ring of Honor as well. So certainly they want you around. I mean, what does it mean when you go into the stadium and you see your name up there and you get that kind of recognition for what you did? When you look at it, I mean, it was a short amount of time with Washington as a player, but certainly you had a big impact on that organization.
Well, I think at the end of the day, it's all about the impact of an individual. You got players that play a long time, but, they played because they was consistent as a player. I think in my case, it was more or less what was the impact of Doug Williams. And, I can say this, we was fortunate enough to win 3 Super Bowls. And This is not bragging or anything, but I think that the 1987 Super Bowl was probably one of the most impactful Super Bowl that we have won. And I say that because all you got to do is look at the parade that we had afterwards and the people that was out there. And, it wasn't about white, it wasn't about black, it wasn't about Democrat, it wasn't about Republican. It was about the Washington Redskins at that particular time. And people was shoulder to shoulder. It didn't matter who you were, where you was from, or what affiliation you are. It was about the Redskins, and you saw it. And I think that in itself was one of the things that stands out to me.
Yeah, it certainly speaks to the power of sports, really, right? Sports and the
Unbelievable.
success of your team unites everybody.
I tell I tell everybody, you're in Washington, D.C., where the commander in chief is here. But if the Washington Redskins are winning and they win the Super Bowl, the president had to get over. He got to move over a while, It's just one of them times, and unfortunate over the last few years, and hopefully that we get back there. This town is a town that put their arms around their team. And I know there's a lot of frustrated fans, and I understand that, but I think you got to give it time. We get to that point. Hopefully, we get to that point that this team begin to win, because this city, this area, the DMV needs winning. And I think once we see winning, you'll see a lot of people putting their arms around this team, man, because it ain't nothing like winning in Washington, D.C.
Are you used to calling them the Commanders just yet?
Yeah, I got to get used to it. I say the Redskins because that's what we're talking about.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, it is the Commanders. And, I talk to a lot of the older guys, and we talk about it. And they understand that the most important thing about this whole organization right now is remembering the color, the burgundy and gold stands out, and the history, the people who played in this organization. And if you can do that, remember all that, and realize that the name has changed for the reason that it changed, and say, hey, we are the Commanders, and go forward from there.
Well, again, going back to your college days, Black College Player of the Year twice, and now you've co-founded the Black College Football Hall of Fame. Tell us about that, why it came about, and what you're looking to do with that.
Good. Yeah, the Black College Football Hall of Fame was something that James Harris and I, like I say, we talk all the time, just about every day, basically. And we used to talk and say, man, we used to talk about all the great players that had gone on the black colleges and never been recognized. And we would just sit around for about 2 years. I can remember we just sat around, we talked about that. Then, man, I hope somebody would start the Hall of Fame, that kind of stuff. And James and I started a foundation right after Hurricane Katrina, because we had been to a lot of charity events. I went to Hawaii to June Jones event, and Shaq was in L.A., and I stopped over in L.A., and I said, we go to everybody event. We ought to have our own. And then the next year, I went to June Jones event again in Hawaii. And then I talked to Kevin Kaplan, who's the executive director of coaching charities. And I said, Kevin, I want you to stop in L.A. and me, you, and Shaq talk about doing this foundation. He said, okay. So we stopped over, and he decided we started the foundation. It was a Harris Williams Foundation. And then a couple of years later, we told him, say, we want to do a Black College Football Hall of Fame. And Kevin was there. He looked at it. He started shaking his head. He was trying to find out. And he knows nothing about black college. He's a white guy. He don't know about no black college. He said, I don't know. I said, and we started running down things to him, talk about guys who've gone on to black college and what they've done in black college. And then he said, let me sleep on it. So the next morning, he wakes up. He said, guys, I got it. So he says, and then the Black College Football Hall of Fame was born out of that.
Wow.
And that's where we are today, with all the guys that have gone to black college. And we felt like what we do, we try to honor guys every year that deserve to be honored, that hadn't gotten their flowers while they're here. And then we give flowers to some of the guys that, has gone on home. and like that, because it's nothing like that. And we was fortunate enough to get picked up by the Hall of Fame, Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. David Baker, when he was the executive director, we did a call with him, and he wanted us to be part of the Football Hall of Fame. And I thought that was something you couldn't pass up. And we felt so good about it, because at the end of the day, as long as there's a NFL Football Hall of Fame, you're going to have a Black College Football Hall of Fame, because we're going to be in it. And I think that's the most important thing. And the history is so valuable that, you can't even think about it. I know a lot of people might not like that kind of history, but at the end of the day, it's history that is history that happened. So we got to recognize it, and that's why, we formed the Black College Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah, as you saw on the header from the website, I mean, obviously you're on there, Eddie Robinson, but Walter Payton, Jerry Rice, Michael Strahan is another one at HBCU growing up and before he went to the NFL. So, there's certainly a footprint on the NFL on what HBCU athletes have certainly done. So it's great to see this. For people watching this, are you on social media? Could they follow you? Can they get involved with the Hall of Fame there?
Well, I'm not a big social media guy. I do have an Instagram. I'm not on it that much. I got a Facebook. My Instagram is Bayou Bullet. That's who I am. Facebook, just Doug Williams. You find me on there. But for the most part, I don't do Twitter. That's too much work. I don't do nothing. My son, who's an assistant coach with the Saints, he be telling me all the time, "Daddy, you got to do Twitter, man." Nah, he said, "Get somebody to do it for you." I definitely don't want nobody to do it for me, because I don't want nobody to put something on there. I don't want to be on there. But no, I think the Hall of Fame has their website. I don't know. I know they're on Twitter, stuff like that. But the Black College Hall of Fame is definitely something that is dear to my heart.
One last question. You mentioned the burgundy and the gold of Washington, but that orange for Tampa Bay, going back, that's pretty special. What were your thoughts wearing those uniforms back in the day? Because I can remember watching back then, and even watching Vinny Testaverde and some other guys that were wearing those uniforms, and certainly they popped at the time.
Well, let me say this, and I'm going to say this, and I meant it to the bottom of my heart. I thought we had the best looking uniform in the league. And people can laugh at them dreamsickles all they want, but they know that white and that orange, there was nothing like it.
Yeah, a little bit different than the color scheme that they have now. Doug, this has been amazing. I really appreciate you spending time with us here, a lot of time as well, talking about your life, your career, and certainly wish you nothing but the best in what you're doing now with the Commanders and with the Black College Hall of Fame as well. And again, I can't thank you enough for spending some time with us here today.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Wow, great stuff there from our guest in episode number 25. It is Doug Williams. Again, the first Black quarterback to play in and win the Super Bowl MVP back in 1987 as well. Working now back with the Washington Commanders. And our thanks to the Commanders PR folks, Sean and Jared, for helping us connect with Doug Williams. Also, our thanks, some of the footage you saw from NFL X-Files and NFL as well. Great stuff. Great conversation. We hope you enjoyed that as much as we did, and certainly we'll have more coming your way. Make sure you subscribe, like this episode, subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. More great guests coming your way shortly. Appreciate you joining us. We'll see you next time in the front row with Mike Vaccaro. Have a great day, everybody.